Alright, so in this video we're going to go over programming assignment 1 and 2. Alright, so it's basically the same scenario is going to be used for both programming assignment 1 and programming assignment 2. So basically the way that the programming assignments work is that they always come in pairs. The first part, so programming assignment 1, is basically a documentation exercise. And then the second part is actually writing the code. So for programming assignment 1, you won't actually be writing any code. You'll just be doing documentation, okay? So here's the scenario. You're a summer intern at Bob's Computer Graphics, and you're making a new computer art program. And so the art program is going to allow users to input information about circles. Okay, and the program will draw those circles based on the information. So if you remember anything about circles from your geometry, circles have a center coordinate based on x and y, and then they have a radius, and then they have a color. So those are going to be the things that we're going to be dealing with. All right, now for this assignment, we're actually giving you some code. Okay, we're giving you this circle drawer class. Okay, and this is the UML diagram that goes with it. Okay, and you'll be given this source code. The source code should be available for download already in the assignment description. Okay, now you do not need to modify this source code at all. Okay, you should just keep it as is and submit it with your files as is. All right, you shouldn't need to touch it or do anything to it. You're, of course, more than welcome to look at it and mess with it and, experiment with it, but you should not need to change it. Okay, and so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating a circle class. So when we've talked about data definition classes, so your data definition class is going to be this circle class. All right, and you're going to keep track of the center coordinates. You're going to have an x value and a y value. And then you're going to have a radius, and then you're going to have a string, which indicates the color, all right? Then there's going to be some validation that you have to do. So it's saying that for x, y, and radius, you're going to use integers. And here's what the variables should be named. And here's the validation. So the x value needs to be between 0 and 800. So if they try and create a circle with a value that's outside of those bounds, it should give some sort of an error or not allow you to do it. And the same thing, y is between 0 and 600, and the radius is between 0 and 100. Okay? The only allowable colors are red, green, and blue. So you can't make, in this version, again, because we're keeping it simple, we're not going to have a black circle or an orange circle or anything like that. So just red, green, and blue. Okay? And one of the things that we show you here is we give you a kind of a partial UML diagram for the circle class, and all we're saying here is that your accessor or your getters need to be named exactly this, okay? In order for your circle class to work with the circle drawer, which is the class that we're giving you, circle drawer uses some of the methods from circle. Okay, and so these methods have to be named this: get x, get y, get radius, get color. If you name them differently, then your circle drawer program will not work. Okay, so make sure that you name them that. Okay, and notice that this is not the complete UML diagram for the circle class. It only shows you these 4 accessor methods. There obviously would be other things like the attributes, the constructor, the mutators or the setters, and any other things that you might need in there. Okay, and so what the application is going to do, so that's the circle is the data definition class. Then you're going to have an implementation class, which is going to be a second class. That's the one that has the main method in it. And that's the one that's going to continually prompt the user to enter in information about the circle. So you're going to need some sort of loop to continually prompt the user to enter information about the circle. Okay, when the user has finished entering the information, so you're going to need to provide the user some way to indicate that they're done. Maybe some sort of a prompt that allows them to break out of this loop and be finished. And then it's going to draw the circles on the screen. Okay? So the way that would look, if we look at this example program here, this is an example implementation class. We're going to initialize the circle drawer class. Okay, now in this example, we're just hard coding in some circle objects, and then we are adding them to Circle Drawer, and then we're showing Circle Drawer, okay? What your program is going to do is, after you initialize the Circle Drawer, that's when you're going to go through and you're going to prompt the user to type in stuff about the circles, okay? Once they've typed in the stuff, then you're going to create an instance of the circle, okay? Then you're going to add that, and you're going to keep doing that, okay? So these statements here, okay, similar kinds of things are going to be inside your loop, okay? So you're going to have a loop that says enter in the x coordinate, enter in the y coordinate, enter in the radius, enter in the color. They're going to do that once they've entered it all in. Then you're going to instantiate a circle. Then you're going to add it to the Circle Drawer, and then the loop's going to continue until they say they're finished. When they say that they're finished, then it's going to pop out, and at the conclusion of the loop, then this is where you would call the cd.show method to actually display all of the circles that they have entered in. Okay? And so this is an example of what the Circle Drawer does. We see we made a circle at 100, 100 with a radius of 100, and we made it green, so that's this circle right here. And then we made a circle down near the bottom, 800, 600 with a radius of 100, and we made it red, and so that's the one down here. Okay? So that's basically what the scenario is, okay? Now for programming, okay, now there's a bunch of other information here about how you have to use object-oriented techniques and all this kind of stuff, and you need to have constants, I don't know if there's any constants necessarily, but constructors, accessors, mutators, all the stuff that has been in the first several lectures of class, okay? And don't use any function or language constructs not covered during IT 106, okay? Now here are the hints. Let's take a look at the hints. You don't need arrays, okay? Do not use an array. There's no need to use an array, all right? If you go back, we talk about what we were talking about before. Inside the loop, each time through the loop when they create a new circle, you can just call cd.addCircle, and then you don't need to have any kind of loop or anything, or sorry, you don't need to use any sort of arrays. You don't need to store all of these circles in an array and then go through and call addCircle. As you create the circle, go ahead and add it to the Circle Drawer. All right. So no arrays are needed. Okay. And think about the type of validations. All right. So you're going to be doing the validations probably mainly in the setter. Okay. And then the last 10, of course, is what I talked about earlier. You need to name the accessor methods these exact names for the program to work. Okay, so for programming assignment 1, this is a documentation exercise, okay? So the first thing is that you list and describe the purpose of each class, okay? Now, we've already pointed out there's going to be at least 2 classes, right? There's going to be the circle class that you're going to create. There's going to be the implementation class. That's the class that has the main method in it. And then the third class would be the Circle Drawer, but it says right here that you do not need to include the Circle Drawer since we gave that one to you. You don't need to do that, okay? So that's step 1. So step 1 is list and describe the purpose of each class, okay? 1 or 2 sentences per class should be sufficient, okay? Then for the data definition classes, you need to create a detailed UML class diagram, okay? So as I said before, the circle is your data definition class, okay? Instead of just using this, you need to add in the things that are missing, okay? So for number 2, you need to add in the rest of the things that are missing from this UML diagram for the circle class, okay? So that is number 2, all right? You do not need to create a UML class diagram for Circle Drawer because that was already given to you, okay? So just for circle, okay? And then for the implementation class, now note, you do not need to create a UML diagram for the implementation class. You only need to create a UML class diagram for the data definition class, which is circle, okay? So just to recap, for number 1, describing the purpose of each class. So you're going to list the 2 classes, circle, and then whatever your implementation class is, and you're going to write a sentence about each of them. Then for the circle class, you're going to create the complete detailed UML class diagram just for the circle class. Then for your implementation class, you're going to create a table that lists all the methods that will be used to create the implementation class, okay? And so here's an example down here of what this would look like, okay? So if you had some kind of a method called, gather circle input, or, populate circle information or whatever, this is where you would list all of those with their inputs and their return values, okay? So the grading criteria for assignment 1. So again, that's all there is for assignment 1. All you're doing is writing documentation. You're not writing any code. You're not doing any pseudocode. You're not doing any of that, okay? You're just doing documentation, okay? These 3 things are what you need to do for assignment 1, okay? And so here's how you're going to be scored. 10 points for part 1, 40 points for part 2, 50 points for part 3. Okay, and then for programming assignment 2, which is not due this week, this is actually going to be due next week, so basically close to 2 weeks from today, that's when you're going to actually implement the solution to the problem. Okay, so that is assignment 1 and assignment 2 in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please email, post something in the discussion forums on Blackboard or on the Piazza site. Email the TA. There's lots of different ways to get a hold of us, and we're generally pretty responsive. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. All right, thanks.